So I was thinking the other day about sort of like my really early days of creating video content, right? And I was thinking how, particularly for me, it has not always been that easy to just like show up on video, show up on camera. And in fact, it used to horrify me just a tad bit. And And so I know I work with a lot of people where it's like, they're like finally coming out and talking about their frameworks and, talking about their experience. And it horrifies a lot of people sometimes. So I wanted to share a few of the things that I did. And I gotta admit, these are some pretty unorthodox ways to do something, but I wanted to share that. There's no fancy get up today. It's just gonna be sort of like me just talking to the camera because, first off, I didn't feel like setting up any of my lights or anything today. Okay, so we're gonna talk about the 3 crazy things I did to stay consistent with video content. And so I wanna say I basically had to like reinvent myself, literally, to stay consistent with video content. So, and I've always worked in a video space. Like, before I started getting on the camera, I was behind the camera. So I was a videographer. I would do like live streams, of course, behind the camera. So I was operating it. It was a very techie thing. So working with these business owners, working with like lots of nonprofits, but I was always behind the scenes, directing people, helping them to get comfortable on camera. So when it actually came time for like me to actually get on camera and do it, I was completely horrified. And I knew the logistics of it. Like tech wasn't a barrier for me, obviously. It was the actual getting on camera part that sort of like messed me up. So, okay, so here are the 3 things that I did. So, the first thing that I actually did was I locked up my hair. Now, so about a few years back, and at this point I can't even remember it because my hair has been locked for like 3 years now. But before this, I would change my hairstyle like every single week. Not every week. I would change my hairstyle like every single like month. And I remember, I don't know if this was an excuse or a valid concern, but I'm like, okay, I want a consistent hairstyle for my video content. I want to be known for one thing and like kind of like one hairstyle. Looking back at it, that probably wasn't a valid excuse, but like, since I change my hair so often, I'm like, okay, when I show up, I want to show up consistently and I don't want anything to hold me back. So one of the things that I did was I locked up my hair. And yeah, locking my hair up, it really helped me a lot because it took like one big decision away from me. And that was like, okay, how am I going to show up on camera, And the second thing that I actually did, and I'm going to actually need you to stay to like the third one because the third one is, well, in my opinion, the most craziest. But the second one I did, this one is not too crazy, and I actually recommend this if you are like horrified of getting on video, but I actually used a teleprompter. So I got a teleprompter off of Amazon. I forgot how much it was. I think it was like $150 or $80. I don't know, but anytime that I got in front of the camera, I would just look at it and then I would freeze. And then I wouldn't remember what it was that I was going to say. And I hadn't learned the technique that I learned sort of like later on down the line, and that was to sort of like have the script next to you and sort of like just talk about each point one by one. So my answer to that was just like, listen, I just need to get this over with just to record the video content and whatever. I'll use a teleprompter. That was actually I was after I locked up my hair. So yeah, I used a teleprompter for my first 24 videos. And at the time, I actually started with video podcasting, not YouTube videos. So I started off with a teleprompter with that. And I'm pretty sure if I go back, you could probably see me reading a teleprompter. I've always been a batcher, so I've always batched all my video content. But yeah, that is another thing that really helped me to stay consistent. And I know a lot of video coaches, they, talk against it. They say that you shouldn't use a teleprompter. But, based on my experiences, I say that if you really think you need that teleprompter and that's the only thing that's going to help you stay consistent at that moment and you need that crutch and you don't necessarily have any help from anywhere else, it is perfectly fine to stay with the teleprompter. And I know a few people who use teleprompters and you can't even tell. um, so if that's what you need to get started, I'm 100% here for it. I won't tell you not to use a teleprompter because I got it started with one. Now I can like kind of talk off the cuff a little bit better. I'm not on a teleprompter anymore, but that's how I started. And I'm looking at my notes over here. Okay, and the third thing that I did was I actually went to a hypnotherapist. So, when I first had the idea of sort of like starting a video podcast at the time, and I knew all the steps, but what was freaking me out really was all the steps that was required. And we, of course, went over that in the sort of like hypnotherapy session. But at the time, I was in like a business networking group, right? And there was a hypnotherapist in there, and he was like, okay, in order for me to get referred, everybody has to sort of understand what I do. So what he was doing was he was offering free sessions to everyone inside of the group. So I was curious. So I was like, whatever. So I went there. And one thing that I was struggling with at that time was my anxiety into getting in front of the camera. So, yeah, we had the hypnotherapy session, and one of the things that we were uncovering was I was freaking myself out about all of the steps that was involved in creating the podcast. So, scripting the podcast, recording the podcast, what is it? Filming the podcast, editing the podcast, and then uploading the podcast, and then creating the graphics for the podcast and promoting the podcast. Like, I knew all the steps because that's what my background was in. And it was freaking me out. And I was thinking about basically the last step, but I hadn't even started, and I didn't even start the first step. I didn't even, script out the first videos. So I think basically what his advice was at the time, or what we did in the hypnotherapy session, he was like, okay, well, literally, I remember this from the session, he was like, literally focus on one thing at a time. So focus on scripting the videos first, and then focus on recording them, and then so on and so forth. And with each video, you will get better one step at a time. And I know it sounds pretty simple now, but at the time, I was really freaking myself out about it. So, and it's crazy now because, like, I completely forgot about sort of like all the things that I had to do to sort of like get comfortable on camera. And a lot of it has to do with repetition, but a lot of the things also was because I asked myself, okay, what do I need to do? What are the barriers holding me back from being consistent with video content? And what do I need to do? What do I need to change to actually, do that? And now I'm that sort of person where, like, even right now, I'm recording this video on my laptop right now. Like, I will show up on the camera, hit that record button, edit it, upload it, and go on about my day. And I honestly, what happens with the video isn't really much concerned with me. But yeah, it wasn't always like that. So yeah, I guess in conclusion with this video, if you haven't gotten on video, or if you're not someone who's like super consistent with it, think to yourself, and maybe it might not be the same reasons that I had, but think to yourself, what is holding me back from being more consistent with video? Is it a confidence issue? Is it a Is it a time issue? Because sometimes it literally is time. And if it's time issue, you might need somebody to help you out with that, with some of the processes. So you might need help with scripting, or you might need help with editing, so on and so forth. Is it a strategy issue? So do you literally not know what you're doing? And it's like freaking you out that you don't know what you're doing, and it's like scaring you off. Yeah, so figure out what's holding you back right now and make steps towards figuring that out, and sort of like knocking those beliefs down and knocking down those hurdles one by one, and see how far you get with that. So yeah, let me know what you think of this video. Have you tried any of the things that I've tried? And yeah, if you need help with your YouTube channel, then definitely book a call down below, and I will see you in the next one.